How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I finally got the gameplay and review of the Dun 71. It's one of the last few ones left, and yeah, I've been playing around with it for the last couple of days. It took a little bit longer than expected to end up getting the footage for this video. Yeah, we'll get stuck into it. We'll see how it stacks up against the others. As for the engines, you want to go for the one from the bottom. It's by far got the best power to weight ratio. Gearbox, I'm going for freeway. The suspension, it has got two lots of suspension, which I'm not as fussed about the suspension, but it gives you more tyre size options, which is pretty cool. There's plenty of tyres to choose from, to be fair. I think there's all the main ones. I think you even have, muds on this, which is pretty nice. I'm going to go for the chained. It's partly just to keep it kind of even, because a lot of the other scouts have done it in chained. I'm also going to be going to Alaska and stuff where, yeah, the muds are good. They're good until they're not. Yeah, got an autonomous winch. I'd recommend that. I've put the spare wheel. Spare wheel's pretty cool that it sits in the back. As for the roof rack, I was looking because you can see the amount of points it offers now. The small roof rack has only got, I believe, a little bit less fuel than the giant roof rack. The giant roof rack slows you down more than the smaller one. So yeah, it's like I can't remember, but I thought back in the day it was like the small roof rack had less repair points, but they both had 300. As for bumpers and everything, keeping them pretty standard issue. Just put the fog lights on the top. I quite like this bumper for whatever reason. That was floating me boat at the minute. Yeah, again, all just normal, so like sun visors and all that crap. As for the colours, quickly, I was sort of trying to fly through this because they're pretty basic things that you can add to it. These are the colours though. Like I said, I used to have a, well, not me personally, my parents had a larder. It was actually my grandparents had it, and then they, I believe they gave it to my parents, and yeah, it wasn't one of these, it was a Lada Samara. I think this is a Lada Neva or something in real life. I think it looks pretty cool though. It's a little bit like the Samara, just like a four-wheel drive version. It's funny looking inside as well, all like the little like heat dials or the sun visors and the roof lining. It definitely yeah, recognise quite a bit of it. As for the view out the back and everything, you can see the tyres, I can see behind me. The spare wheel in the back was slightly in the way, you can see it in the rear view mirror. The horn, to be fair, it's not bad for a little car. Revs nice and quickly, which I do like about it, and it revs up, I believe it's like getting on for about 6,000, might be slightly under that, but then again it does, I think this is one, yeah, where it idles at like almost 2,000. I don't know about anyone else, I don't think I've ever seen an engine idle at 2,000, not one that's working anyway, not properly. As for the trailers, yeah, you got the radar trailer, the fuel trailer, and the two cargo options. I really don't like either own cargo options. And you see, like, places like this is where I've kind of found with this thing. It's fun to fly around in certain areas. Obviously, on paved roads and that, it goes along pretty nicely. It's when you hit this mud, I apologise because there is a little glitch there, but it basically just, yeah, slows down on the mud. This was actually, eventually, it like wound back up to speed a bit better, and it was kind of clawing through it. Gets a little bit drifty and stuff. I think the main thing for this is it's extremely light, so again it hasn't really just got the weight to like plant it into the ground. So yeah, like as I was building the speed up, it skates around a little bit, and then now it's not so much sinking in the mud as like skimming along the top of it. I normally do this with the Scout, so I'm turning off to the right because that is kind of what I would do with a Scout just during my gameplay. That's half the especially with this thing, because this thing is bloody small even compared to the Loaf. And yeah, you can, squeeze down little gaps. That's definitely what she said. And yeah, like just things that you couldn't get away with, obviously, with like a bigger truck. Just clipping that stone though. I would say it's slightly weighted lower down because of the wheels, but again, there's just not much weight to it. And as you'll see a couple of times tonight, it's a pain in the arse for trying to flip back to its wheels. I kind of flagged it there, I seen what was going to happen, so yeah, release the winch and let it roll over, but it's not keen. Once you're on its side, it doesn't just flip back to its wheels as easy as you'd expect, as easy as it would do in real life. But yeah, it makes it through there, no problem, so, well, that's just, yeah, one of the other tests I did with the Scouts. And places like this, I mean, it does, if you can get the momentum going in the right places, it's not too bad, but then you'll see now, I hit this muddy bit, and it just absolutely almost stops. Like, it's going about half a mile an hour, 1 mile an hour, whatever, but it's just not enough, and it's like the amount of times that it gets stuck in little sections like that where the mud's barely even like going up the rubber of the tyres, let alone getting as far as the alloys or anything. And then like this little dirt path though, winding up the mountain, because it's not boggy mud or anything, it actually kind of grips in, allows you to just go faster. Someone was telling me the other day though, because they've been playing around with things like as far as modding and stuff goes, and yeah, they were saying they were using a ER87, and I believe they were trying out some of the weight characteristics and stuff, but it didn't really make much difference. And what they said is they put, I believe it was the Tatrin wheels on the ER87, and then they said suddenly it was like flying through the mud. So obviously tyre statistics plays a hell of a big part in this game, which I could see to a degree, but probably more than you would think, sort of thing. Or like, they've probably not matched a lot of the tyres as well as they could. I mean, we all know the Tatrin is a little bit unique in how easily it just ploughs through everything at the same speed. It goes along a road and then it'll go through like pretty thick mud and snow and all sorts at just like one speed fits all. Another one that someone was telling me is the P12. I believe that apparently has the best tyre statistics in the game. And yeah, I really like the P12, considering it's not all-wheel drive. It grips very well, and I believe that is still partly helped by the weight. I certainly think weight is still like an issue, or it can help and stuff. Bigger things like the clubs that are just on the mud tyres and that, they still just sink themselves into the terrain so well that, yeah, they motor, unless you've got some serious weight on it and stuff, like, they don't really wheel spin. And the Tatrin is pretty weighty. But yeah, I get what this guy was saying, and obviously the fact that he's been able to mod and mess around with like the ER and he put the Tatrin wheels on, that helps. So possibly that's a way to go with this thing as and when they add mods, because it has got some power there. Again, like once you actually let it wind up, but there's just, yeah, there's quite a lot of trucks, scouts and trucks, more scouts I would say though. Yeah, that just gets so over restricted and limited by, you know, just it's not really that muddy. Also fine, you can hear now. The thing revs quite a lot. I've got my engine sounds turned up pretty high because I like most of the other ones. If I'm honest, well, between getting the footage yesterday and tonight, the sound of the engine just revving at 6,000 RPM as it goes half a mile an hour through stuff. Yeah, it's a little bit... when you're watching this, you'd almost imagine like the clutch is slipping. For anyone who's drove a car where the clutch is slipping, you'll know what I mean, where you can kind of hear the revs and everything going, but it's just, yeah, the actual oomph to it is not quite there, because I appreciate in this game, I'm pretty damn certain it isn't going to have a clutch and it isn't going to be slipping, but that's what it comes across like. Especially, yeah, when you hear it revving at like 6,000 and it's barely crawling along at a few miles an hour. But once you actually open it up and let it go, it's pretty rapid, this thing. It's got pretty decently sized tyres as well, especially for the size of this. And yeah, because it's quite small and compact and everything, got up there, no real issues. It did, when I tried to go up that really steep hill to kind of cut a section of the map out, it got a bit iffy. And then, yeah, while I was up here, I thought it, treat myself, go flying off the cliff. But there's a little chance to look at the weight characteristics, or lack of, more. Like I said, there's practically no weight to this. I wouldn't say the tyres are particularly heavy, it's just I think they're a little bit heavier than the body. But that's a good thing, because as you'll see now, like, it's not guaranteed it's going to go back on its wheels and everything, but I've rolled it quite a bloody lot of times in the last couple of days, and yeah, it goes back to its wheels pretty well. So it's section on Black River. A nice thing is though, you have got diff locks. You have to go obviously in low range, but at least they're there, at least the option is there. But because it revs up to 6,000, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely convinced with like various trucks and vehicles and that in this game that the rev counter is realistic, or like, you know, what it's actually supposed to be, because I've noticed it with John a lot. When you rev that, like, sometimes you can hear the engine really winding up and whistling, but the revs themselves will still be probably like, could be under 1,000, whereas yeah, other times you could be on the same amount of revs and the thing like barely sounds like it's winding up. So not that it's the end of the world, but I've just noticed that, like, I wouldn't solely rely on the sound of the engine winding up. see there, it's too restricted for a big, tall 4x4 off-road vehicle, and there is plenty of power here, really. It's just there's something about the mechanics of, yeah, just the mechanics of it. That's what I've been saying really for the last month or two or whatever, is just things need a little bit more weight to act a bit more realistically. The good news though, bombing over all them rocks, if anything I'd be more worried about like getting an unlucky bounce on a rock and flipping over. I never got any suspension damage off them. It was possible, I did pick up a little bit of suspension damage later from hitting some rocks, but yeah, it's not easy. I certainly wouldn't worry about it. The anti-terrorist barricade nearly kind of tipped me, but it did only do 2 damage to the engine, which is not too bad for how quick I was going. Yeah, this video nearly wasn't happening tonight. I've had my internet's been disconnected all night. I just like lost signal and all the rest of it, and finally, about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes ago, I was not far off thinking, well, I'll just have to post a message saying I can't upload the video, but fortunately, just in time it came back. Next up is Northport, and flying into that snow, it just, I nearly like flipped over the front. It stopped me that quickly. And I had to edit that bit out because that was about a minute to get from there to there, and that's not even an exaggeration. Yeah, at least it does sit tall enough that it can actually climb over the barriers, which I do like, because it's more, if I know something can climb over the barriers, I know it's got pretty decent clearance as far as like the rocks and all sorts of stuff that you come across in the map. That last barrier though, where it gets a bit taller, I couldn't quite get over it. I believe in the end, I think I got my front wheels over, I just couldn't get the back wheels over. I had to do only a tiny bit of winch, nothing special, but yeah, I give it a good old go. I was there for a few minutes. And to be fair, compared to some scale, I mean, it wasn't terrible through there, but it's just the slowness. Like, there'd be no reason really to bring this over most of the trucks. And of course, because the Loaf's a goddamn professional, I've been messing around with that thing all night in between some of the goes, and yeah, the Loaf would eat this thing for breakfast on all kinds of situations. There's where the weight got me a bit, but you'll see now with the how it doesn't like to go back to its wheels. I admit I'm pretty close to the lamppost now, so I was like, fair enough, but I couldn't reach anything else, so I came back, give it another go. And as far as actually just climbing up the lip of the rock, it was doing fine, but it just keeps tipping over to the left. And because there's no weight planting the thing down really, it just kind of, yeah, can scoot around and skid along. I was about to go off again, so I tried to, I was trying to winch to that tree over the other side, but as you can see, it just decides that it can't reach that, which I'm surprised. Going over there, I was like, oh yes. No, that did not go well. But you'll see now, I did an auto winch, so it's winch to the bottom, but I change it now. I get the top of that. I mean, look, and it more bothers me in that sense. It's like, how are the wheels so crap at going through terrain when they're on their wheels, but then when the thing's on its side, the wheels are just scooting through the terrain as if it's not there, and it's like, well, I wish it'd bloody do that when it was driving on its wheels. Pretty happy with this though. It's a not bad little climber in some situations. Like, that's a pass for me, that counts. It was pretty smooth as well, all things considered. And then yeah, there's nothing I can do about it. I wish there was. But you see what I mean though, it just, like, the snow and everything's not even close to the axles. It's not even covering like the rubber, the bottom rubber part of the tyre, and yeah, there's just nothing there really. You can see the speedo. I mean, that thing barely ever gets above 10 unless you're on a paved road and you give it a chance to wind up to speed. Going through the trees, I thought this thing would be alright because it's pretty damn small. I don't even think you can get the bobblehead things in the car, which I'm not really bothered about them. I'm not moaning that they've added them, it's cool, it's some customization options. I'm just personally, I could sort of take them or leave them. Yeah, can you hear the engine though, just revving flat out? Like, this thing would be a goner. It would by the time I'm finished with it. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, it did get through there, no issues. Very, very slowly got up the hill. Nice thing though, that's why I just left that bit in, ground clearance, especially that the thing's got a very short wheelbase, it actually drove over the peak of that mountain, which not many things do. Anyway, next up the cargo test. As far as turning goes, I mean, look at it, it's already nearly turned around before I've even got over that snow. Tiny little glitch there again, I apologise, it's been absolutely nailing me with glitching. It did yesterday, that's why I deleted half of yesterday's footage and got some of it again tonight, but for whatever reason it's it's something that the computer doesn't seem to like about this Don. Eventually, when you get up to speed, it settles down. It's a little bit like jackknifey as you're trying to get up to speed. Oh, it's like, oh, you bastard. Just had to stare at it for a second. Fuck you, container, crate thing, whatever you are, vehicle spare parts, I'm off. You had your chance. Had a chance to be part of my trailer store, and you blew it. See, right now though, I'm not even in low range with the diffs on, so it is actually, yeah, considering it's a Scout, again, like a truck would just motor through here, especially with this trailer with no cargo on. Most trucks are doing this thing with a ramped flatbed or a semi-trailer with 4 or 5 vehicle spare parts on. But yeah, eventually it's just crawling. Like, I can't really do a lot. I eventually stopped or got sort of as good as, I mean, I wouldn't really call that moving. I had to winch the trees, pull myself out of there. And yeah, this is what it just is all the way, really. It's about this speed, which is a bit of a shame, because I think they could have done more for this vehicle. I mean, again, look, it's just, I know it's a snowy, slightly muddy road, but again, the tyres aren't even sinking into the ground. It's just, yeah, there's not. That's what I would do, increase the weight first thing. And then, yeah, preferably if you could, like that dude was saying, I would try and stick tattering tyres on bloody everything if that's going to be the key to the situation. Where that first bit of water got deep, it was like, again, very slow. Once we're actually what is classed as shallow water, if it went this speed everywhere, I could live with that, because it actually, but when you really are going like half a mile an hour, you just, yeah, you can see something 50 metres ahead, and it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I'm not even going to be there for another, like, minute or two, and there's nothing, like, at half a mile an hour, there's no action going on, there's no, like, you got to swerve and miss a rock or try not to crash and all the rest of it. It's just squeeze the throttle, stare around your room, stick a YouTube video on or something, that's about it. As for, I finally, at least I remember to do the interior gameplay, I've got rid of the spare tyre now. So views all around, pretty good to be honest. The bonnet doesn't really get in the way or anything. It did actually get a nice little bit of speed going there, and then I kind of hit this section and yeah, pretty much stopped me dead. It is funny seeing all like the sun visor and roof line, and that really does look pretty similar. The ignition bit and everything, the steering wheel doesn't really look the same. It had some seriously old radio in the car, I remember that. It was one of them, for people who were kind of around in the 90s who remember cars getting broken into and their, what do you call it, head units being stolen was pretty common. You get yourself a ladder, ain't no one stealing that. Probably because it wouldn't fit. It wouldn't fit in most other things. Probably wouldn't wire up the same as well. But yeah, as I say, that car was a beast. The thing was solid, man. Joe, it went through that section so well. I was kind of still half zoning out in interior view. I was like, nope. Otherwise, I'll regret it if I don't while I'm there. Reverse back, because it actually did go through there pretty well. And that's where this thing has, like, its benefits and stuff. I mean, yeah, things like climbing around like this. If I was already in a particularly slow section, this kind of speed wouldn't bother me, but this does. Like the rock bridge, I always thought it'd do pretty nicely on here, because it has got pretty decent ground clearance. Again, I apologise for another bloody glitch. If I went to go back and try and get all this again, which I've already done for the second time now, I think it'd just still nail me with glitches. But yeah, because it's the front wheels are pretty close to the front of the truck, or the Scout, sorry. The bumper I put on, I believe it might be a tiny bit lower, but it's nothing crazy. I'd just probably choose what bumper you want on this thing, because, yeah. But again though, other than fun, there's not really a whole reason to take it out. Like, the Loaf is definitely more capable than this, and the fact that they're both small vehicles, this would be, it was on the short list to go in the sideboards of all my trucks and go around. But yeah, the Loaf was just a goddamn professional, and it actually can handle its business. Once you get there like this, I don't think it'd be able to flip anything other than probably like another one of itself, because yeah, there's just no weight planting down to really dig in, whereas the Loaf, to its credit, it's got some nice meaty weight low down, and it does what you've seen, digs itself a little Loaf hole, and it flips all kind of trucks. Going along the mud, you know what, at first, considering I got this far in auto, I was like, well, it might be alright. It wasn't. It wasn't alright. I was going to skip past this first kind of pool of water and go to the next one, because I already knew it'd be pretty slow regardless. Yeah, as I got a little bit further ahead, even though I'm sticking to the edge of the map, really, it wasn't happy about it. Dropped it into low range with the diffs on, so it's still going like that, but yeah, at this point, I'd just call it a day. I'd go back, if this was just my own gameplay and I was doing something, I'd recover it and bring something else. Like, the tyres just feel like... yeah, if you were just driving on a sheet of black ice, then that's, I assume, about the desired effect you'd get. And it's got chained on as well, which... I've used them with muds as well. I don't think it really makes a whole lot of difference. But again, with the chained on this kind of map, every time you hit the roads and all sorts, the muds just absolutely go flying off into the ditches. Again though, good ground clearance, like the nose clearance. It did a pretty decent nose test there. Got up there with no problems. Once you're on top of these mountains, the snow's a lot more thinned out. It's not what the game would class as pretty juicy snow. I wouldn't even say this section is for a lot, but this thing, I would just, I don't know, has a lower bar set for what it considers rough terrain. Once you get to, yeah, again, that sort of snow, it suddenly zips along. I think it smokes a little bit less than it used. I don't know. I remember it smoked pretty bad for a little vehicle last time. Yeah, to me that's just not good enough. I want to be wading through snow that's like practically up to my doors and window and that before I start going half a mile an hour. Again though, with the rolling, I mean, there's only so many times you can land on your wheels before it's beyond dumb luck, and it's actually the characteristics of the vehicle are kind of helping the situation out, because it was pretty small then as well. It had kind of the hill, yeah, had the right momentum and everything to get back to its wheels. And to be honest, going up here, I thought it'd absolutely just fly up here. I know some of them do start to like get a bit iffy on that section, but the fact that this thing is so light and punchy, I thought it'd, yeah, nail its way up there, but sadly not. At least it didn't tip off to the side. Well, you'll see it tip in a minute. It is pretty decent as far as not tipping goes. I assume putting a roof rack on probably wouldn't help the situation, but it doesn't with most things really. Except the Loaf, because it's goddamn professional. Yeah, that's the thing I find with this. You're just waiting, like, I know where I'm going to the top of this mountain, but I knew that 30 seconds ago when I was not very far away from the top of the mountain. And you just have to watch it and listen to it rev like a maniac. Now though, when it catches itself, I mean, yeah. If it really was like weighted near the top and it wanted to go, it easily would have gone there. That was a pretty good example of the weight characteristics. Again, I mean, with the trailer, once you get up to speed, kind of straightens things out, and the trailer doesn't really have time to jackknife, but trying to get up to speed, because there's just not enough weight on the back end, yeah, the trailer's more dictating the car than the other way around. But in the right situation, I'll be honest, it was actually pretty fun / funny towing a trailer, because, yeah, again, it acts like a little maniac. and then we get back to the mud. And with the exception probably of the Tatrin, pretty much everything, or all the scouts are not great in mud, but this has got to be, yeah. And I'm sure the power to weight on this is, I think it's over halfway, which isn't that bad for scouts as far as most of the scouts go. mean, the Loaf is a beast, and the power to weight ratio on that's pretty low, but the Loaf does a goddamn fine job, if I do say so myself. Yeah, going down here again, the trailer's just wiggling me around. I couldn't really do a lot. It's one of them with the front steering where sometimes the steering just bites in and goes because there isn't a lot of weight that it has to fight against, but then at the same time, and I imagine the Chin custom suspension might have something to do with it, it's quite bouncy and springy, so it's very easy for the weight to just get lifted off the front wheels, and then it doesn't steer, and then it kind of lands back on its front wheels and really bites in, and that's how you start to get like the snake in jackknife effect going on with the trailer, really. It almost like, it looked like it went to jump off the cliff, and then yeah, the weight of the trailer was like, nope. See that trailer behind me? That was yesterday's attempt when I did all this, drove down here, did a lap of the quarry, did everything, got there, and it wouldn't save the footage for some reason. So then I had to go and do this again. Yeah, getting as far as down here was not too bad, but then once you get into that boggy section, it's, if I left, well, you can see I've already just about managed to make this video under 40 minutes. Yeah, this thing would be like probably over an hour if I left all the normal footage in. I was just keeping an eye on the revs at the minute, what was going on. I was going up it. I forgot to put the diff locks on, but it's irrelevant really, I think, as far as the revs go. So I think the revs were about 3,000 then, so it's only about half of what the vehicle can give you. And you can hear though, this is what I don't like with the low range gearbox. Can you hear how the engine just keeps dying down? It's not too bad now as it flattens out, but you'll I'm pretty sure you'll hear it doing it again. Like there. And I don't know like there, you just, where's the revs? What's going on? And then I blipped the throttle and it kind of built up again, and it's just like, what the hell are you doing? And it's not that it can't get up here, well, you can see it eventually does, slowly but surely, but I have to put it in low range. Again, I could have the snow runner gearbox and have the 3 low range options, but honestly, they don't seem to ever add that much more revs from medium to high low anyway, so I certainly don't think it'd suddenly jump up to like 4,000 or 5,000 revs or anything. Yeah, at this point I was so bored of waiting to get up the hill, I just flung a winch out, helped myself along a little bit. As you can see, the sun was pretty much set by that point, so that's how long it took. And by now I actually thought it would fail, and I've brought, by the way, a Scout fuel trailer. I think I did it with some of the other Scouts. It's just those cargo, not only are they shocking because the wheels are just so little and scraping, and I've shown before on one of the videos that the wheels were locking up on the trailer for no apparent reason, so it was like trying to drag an anchor through the mud. But yeah, I wouldn't use the cargo trailers with the Scout. It's just, there's never any reason for it, and I've shown you before, I'd rather tow a 2-slot truck trailer than the 2-slot Scout trailer. So a Scout fuel trailer is a lot more realistic as to what I'd be doing with this, if anything. But with this vehicle personally, unless something was basically a road away from our garage, I just wouldn't take this. Yeah, it did actually get up the 3rd quarry hill, to its credit, which after the 2nd quarry hill and that, I really wasn't holding out much hope, but it did it. Flying down here, see, the most speed I got there, I was kind of like bounced up in the air. And that was a pretty successful trip down there. As far as I did a couple of trips down there and the day before, and it went a hell of a lot slower. A little trailer collection. Of course, I couldn't resist it any longer. I had to get myself a goddamn horse or vehicle, and this is what I do, of course. A professional makes you think you're gonna tip. Just messing around, but at the end of the day, he's back on his wheels, he's good to go. But yeah, just the urgency, even of the Loaf, which I certainly wouldn't put on the higher end of the speed scale or anything, but it's just, I don't know, it's more planted, it's got more power. It just made a concrete slab its bitch. Even there, got its little nose off and we're good, we're going. I'll cut it out, but I actually, yeah, I use that concrete reversed up into the trailer, see? It's goddamn horse of a vehicle. This is just a quick one, just to show you. Again, apologies for that little glitch, but that was a glitch. It wasn't me editing or anything. You can see how much it just flies up this hill compared. I'm still in high range and has no issues. Little bounce around on some of the stones and that, but it soon lands, re-gets its grip. It's not choking in high or anything. It's not just sitting there and wheel spinning. It's definitely a hell of a lot quicker than the Don 71 was. See, get yourself a loaf. That is the conclusion. It's the conclusion of every video, but that's not the point. Yeah, still stayed in high though. It didn't even choke in higher. It would have got up there just fine in auto. It even went for a little extra steep bit, and we're all good. The loaf will get fuel where you need it. That's why there is fuel trailers scattered all over the place. I kind of not panicked, but I don't know. I was supposed to hit the horn and then drive off. I kind of did them both at the same time. Just the loaf doing an impression of a fish. Pretty goddamn good impression of a fish, if I do say so myself. And just to show you, I mean, of course he got out of there. I actually think I could have done the whole the trick where I put it in high gear, kind of chew the mud away and flip back to your wheels, but there was a trailer there, I could reach it with a winch, so I didn't even try. Nailed its engine pretty good by then, but yeah, the loaf kept going. So as far as an ice test goes, and this is where one of the, I don't know, selling points as such of the Apache is that it can go across ice very well. This thing can go across ice all day long as well. It just, yeah, it has no weight to it. As you'll see in a minute, I tried to help it along in falling through the ice, and it still wouldn't. Like, at this point, I think I'd have to just punch it into the ice with another vehicle. Like, going around in circles, I'm driving over the same bit I've just drove over, so I've already cracked the ice up and all sorts. And this is definitely a section that you can fall through into as well, so that bit and stuff certainly is, maybe not that little edge there. But yeah, it's definitely starting to, like, you can see the water spraying up and stuff. I've officially broke through and all the rest of it, but the thing is motoring along just fine. And in fairness, the Apache is pretty horrifically slow in practically every terrain anyway. At least this thing actually motors along, like if you're going along the ice, or again roads, very dry dirt roads and all that. Yeah, so I probably still would take this over the Apache if that helps at all. See though, as soon as I grab that, and that is on skis, and I mean, I'm sure it's got some weight to it obviously, but I've towed that thing with loafs and all sorts, like it doesn't weigh anything. This thing can't get through the gears or anything. It's just yeah, as soon as I release it, we're off, we'll get some speed. And of course it had to, I did a pretty goddamn nice balance, if I do say so myself, on two wheels for about 5 seconds there, but of course I had to glitch it. Had to be a tosser. Another little roll. I just left this bit in because I quite like the look of this thing when you've smashed the suspension and it sits down pretty low. Obviously I could put lowered suspension on it, but then it won't give me these size tyres. And yeah, still a zippy little beast when it's like that. Couldn't even make it into the water though. That one little chunk of ice absolutely nailed me. And she's done. So this is where I mess around with it quite a bit. See, I did hit a rock and damage my suspension. It is theoretically possible, but it's pretty rare. It's not really going to be an issue. But yeah, I like flying this thing off the cliff every now and then. I also like sitting at the end of the cliff and smashing into it with the truck and seeing how far we can send it. And yeah, gets a good little bit of air. I think the lock-in physics is back in this. I'll sort of point that out in a minute. I think I left the footage in. Yeah, once you land on your nose and stuff, it kind of sits in the vertical position. It doesn't really fall back to its wheels or anything very well. And of course it was time. I had to send in the goddamn professional. I knew what needed to be done. Well, I was trying to weigh the dolphin down enough to jump slightly less off the cliff and hit it, but I mean, yeah, this is why you get yourself a goddamn horse with a vehicle. Just missed the Don. Dolphin's tapping out. He's done. But not the Loaf. One of life's great mysteries. How the Loaf is such a goddamn professional. Another one of life's great mysteries. Why do they advertise penis enlargement pills on porn sites? It's like, I'm watching porn, it's already bigger. Well, you would, like, want me to get even bigger? If it gets any bigger, I'll have to climb in and operate it. Have to play it off like a terrible Halloween costume. But what did you come as? Oh well, funny you should ask actually. I'll give you a clue. This is not a polo neck jumper. Happy Halloweener. And they'll say, but the party's not until later. I'll say, I know, but I wanted to get into character, so I came early. See, Loaf's goddamn professional. I mean, it was never going to struggle flipping that Don. That was a piece of piss, an inevitability. But flipping the Dolphin, I cut a little bit there, only because when I first winched the Dolphin, it just started driving forward on its wheels, and it was like, as you've seen it do plenty of times, so I got a bit of a better angle, and yeah, flipped it. No problem whatsoever. See, that's why you get yourself a Loaf. Don't worry about this Don 71. Get yourself a goddamn horse of a vehicle, and all your worries will be over. As for the Don 71, it floats, so the whole thing of it having a snorkel, well, to be fair, once it's fully in the water, you can see in the distance there is my other Don 71 that's already in the water, so that kind of shows you where and how it floats. At least, to be fair, it tends to float on the side more with the snorkel, but I'm already losing 90% of my traction now. I can't really, it's just about skimming the water. I end up flinging a winch to that trailer, but you'll see when I rotate the camera back round, yeah, there's my Don 71. So once you actually let it sink, it's, yeah, mostly down in the water. That's actually one that floats like the opposite side to the driver's side, which is pretty uncommon. I sort of thought in this game, does the fact that the driver's in there, have they weighted the vehicles? Because the vast majority of them seem to, yeah, do just that. Like, whichever side the driver's on, that seems to sink a little bit more in the water generally, but I believe this one doesn't. So, yep, the Dolphin, I didn't want to have to do it, but it made me, so had to try and drown the Don. As you see, that's what I wanted to see. Once I let go of it, you can see kind of the front roof and the snorkel sticks out of the water at least. So in this situation, it wouldn't take damage. If I was driving across that water in, say, the Dolphin, I could probably attach a winch to this, as long as the winch had a little bit of length to it, so it doesn't just like drag me straight down towards its nose. But yeah, it would at least float travelling across rivers and stuff. I just winched again though. You can see it takes hits pretty quick, considering it was a 13 hit. Snorkel wasn't even that far underwater then. But I mean, that's the thing, like the Loaf doesn't float, but I actually prefer that. There's a few vehicles that obviously float, and preferably speaking, overall I'd rather they sink. There is a few exceptions. The twin steer is pretty good at cutting across there. It's not amazing though. The Voron Grad is probably the clear winner for cutting across that water. That helps that the front floats, but generally speaking, I'd rather just sink to the bottom. I can drive, get grip. Yeah. Vehicles that float obviously just lift your wheels off the floor, and that's the end of it. I thought I'd bring this back though, give it a go. See if it could manage the same as the Loaf. Not quite as good, but as you can see, yeah, the like mechanics where it just locks it in place, they've obviously added them back into the game, which means Lone Wolf airmail business could be back on the go. Yeah, it just like kind of landed on its back end. It just didn't want to tip down to its wheels. Like I said, some trucks do, some trucks don't. This is just one that you have to basically stick a winch on something. I got back to my wheels. At least it did actually tip back to its wheels, but I couldn't drive out of there unless I stuck a winch on the Dolphin. Used it here as a wedge. I don't really know if it made that much difference. I know I'm backing into it a bit now, but I'm not sure. Well, you've seen, yeah, Loaf. Loaf saved it. Saved it on its own anyway. So, that's about it really. I mean, yeah. I already knew. This is kind of why I left this thing for so long, just because as I was driving it, I kind of knew that it was just going to be a bit like, nah, it's going to be one of those reviews where I can't really exactly sell it to you because it's just not, it's not quite up to scratch at the minute. As far as money goes, I mean, what is it, only about 12 grand. Reading there, it says it's like the first four-wheel drive vehicle in the Eastern Bloc or something. It's not purpose-built off-roader, but it's pretty sturdy, all the rest of it. Pretty typical description. Yeah, I mean, if you got one laying around, they're about 40 grand fully upgraded. Probably worth keeping one around just to mess around. Like I said, it is pretty funny flying down the runway and so on, but as far as a game tackling vehicle, it's not really there for me. But yeah, that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.